anybody, you know, if you want your loved one and somebody that's caring for somebody with dementia, it is 24/7. It's full on. It's very difficult. And the worst thing, I think, is when they don't recognise you anymore. And we've already got lots of comments coming in. And so I kind of get it. I know my mother wouldn't have done that in a million years, and she's of that generation, you know, sickness and health, and they've been together, you know,
Doesn't it also
60
depend
years.
on what their relationship is like? You know, they were madly in love.
Yes. So I think, you know, if you imagine now you were in not a great marriage or relationship, you know, you're still together, but it's not great. Then you discover your partner's got dementia. Then you almost feel like you're changed, don't you? You say, well, I can't leave them now. That would just look awful. You might have even been considering a divorce. Yeah. And then find out.
If you're in a great marriage, you are suddenly with somebody that's a stranger. I would imagine that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Your mum had
My mum
dementia,
had Alzheimer's, yes, and also there's so many different forms of dementia, isn't there? And for me, with my mother, for instance, you know, we all dealt with it in a completely different way. It was a bit like grieving while somebody was still there, and each of us grieved in a different way. And there was times when I've said before, you know, I used to go to bed and pray, like, please, just let her go in her sleep and blah, blah. Yeah. So if somebody, because I couldn't see her like that, I couldn't bear it, and I knew if she had to say she couldn't bear it. So I feel sorry for anybody who feels guilty about any feelings that they're having. Do you know what I mean? Because if somebody came up to me and said, I don't think I can stay, you know, I've loved her all these years, or him all these years, I don't think I could stay, I would definitely put my arm around them and say, listen, I understand, and it's totally up to you, and you shouldn't feel guilty.
It's almost a shame that you couldn't have something else within the marriage law, where not an annulment, because you wouldn't want to say that what you'd had hadn't been. But if you have effectively lost somebody while still living and they're in a home, and as you say, people are getting diagnosed younger and younger, then and we've interviewed people here that ever so young, and it's a shame there can't be something that says that you can move on without divorce, because I think that's an incredibly difficult thing for a person to do.
There's a man who's been talking about this, and he said, there isn't a day goes by when I don't think about being free from my marriage and having a normal relationship, someone you can talk to, make plans with, or just be with. But how can I go? My wife is so vulnerable, it would be cruel to leave her.
And a lot of people in society would judge him. Yeah. You know, and as we often say, you shouldn't judge till you walk in somebody's shoes, and every situation is different. But, you know, we've all got kids, and you suddenly think, you know, God forbid, touch wood, if something happens to one of our children and say they ended up in a wheelchair for the rest of their lives, we would look after them until the day we died. Unquestioningly. So I think if you're in a strong relationship, that is the same situation.
But he says,
if you have been struggling anyway, then
30 years, and he says the life we once had together has gone, but I have to stay. So many of you are already getting in touch. Thank you so much for your comments. We love to hear from you. Lynn says, my husband has Alzheimer's and I have considered divorce. I stay because I love my husband, although it's one-sided and thankless. If people think divorce in these cases is cruel, maybe they should walk a mile in my shoes before making that judgment.
No, I've already had the conversation with Mark about this, and the thing, it really, really frightens, I think, like so many of us, there's so much about dementia and Alzheimer's. It feels like everything that we open, that we're reading something about it.
And when it's been in your family, you worry literally every time you forget something, you think, oh,
what that must be like. And I have a real, almost irrational fear about it, I think, because I'm so petrified at the thought that what if Mark had to look after me? I don't want him to look after me.
Don't you?
No, I really...
But what if he wants to?
I don't want him to. I mean, I have said to him, I've had the conversation with him that if I were to be diagnosed, I would...
With what?
I would end my life. I've said that to
With
him.
what?
With dementia.
But also with dementia, there's so many different layers of it. I mean, quite a lot of people have huge periods of lucidity, and they go, oh, yeah, there's the person I married, and that sort of sustains them.
I'd be frightened that I wouldn't know when I've crossed over from that into that, and I just... And Mark says to me, but what about those vows in sickness and in health? And I can't take that on.
Tracy's got in touch. Difficult. She said, you don't you're not divorcing the person, you're divorcing the illness.
Yeah.
And in most cases, that person doesn't even know who you are.
Exactly.
Very...
There's another one here that's interesting about Linda, because she works in the dementia unit. And she says, and she constantly sees partners of patients turn up to visit wives, husbands with new partners in tow. Maybe we should not judge. Mostly the people in care are totally oblivious to the fact their partners have found somebody else. But there are people that judge. You know, Jane says you can't just walk away when your husband or wife needs you more than ever. What a shallow, cruel person you are if you do.
No, but what if they don't know who you are?
And I think that's brilliant of Jane to say that, if that's what she... Fantastic. I don't judge her, and I wouldn't judge someone that did walk away, because we all deal with it differently.
Oh, it's such a very emotional, such a difficult thing, and heartbreaking decisions to make when someone has dementia. But listen, thank you so much for getting in touch, and I'm sorry we can't read all your comments, but we do actually read them all.